The air in Heathrow's arrivals hall on February 13, 2024, was a familiar blend of recycled oxygen, jet fuel, and the faint collective anxiety of travel. It hummed with the cacophony of reunions and farewells, 1,000 disparate journeys converging under the sterile, unforgiving glare of fluorescent lights. Through this chaotic sea of humanity, she moved not like a passenger, but like an event. Magdalena Sadlo, a vision in a cream-colored suit, glided across the polished stone floor with a poise that bordered on defiance. Her oversized sunglasses were a black mirror, reflecting the world while revealing nothing of the eyes behind them. On her arm, a bright red Hermes bag hung with calculated nonchalance, a slash of defiant color against the terminal's muted tones. She approached the customs bench and offered the officer a smile that was both dazzling and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a smile she had perfected, a social tool honed in front of cameras and phone screens. With a graceful movement, she hoisted her leather suitcase onto the inspection bench. The customs officer, a man whose career was built on observing the subtle tells of deception, felt an immediate, instinctual prickle of suspicion. It wasn't what he saw, but what he didn't see. No nervous fidgeting, no flicker of apprehension. Only a serene, almost bored, confidence. When the lid swung open, it revealed a tableau of curated perfection. It was less like luggage and more like a luxury boutique display case. Designer pajamas were folded with geometric precision. Niche perfumes, nestled in silk scarves, promised exotic, expensive scents. A Patek Philippe watch, its value exceeding the officer's annual salary, lay quietly among the finery, as if it had nothing to hide. Everything was perfect. So perfect, in fact, that it felt staged. Wealth this ostentatious was usually either inherited and worn with casual indifference, or newly acquired and flaunted with a desperate need for validation. This was neither. This was performative. As his gloved hands began their methodical search, a phone lying next to her purse buzzed on the cool metal surface. The screen lit up for a fleeting second before she swiftly silenced it, but the officer's peripheral vision had already snagged the words. It was a text message, a bizarre and chilling mantra that sliced through the mundane reality of the arrivals hall. Profit so far. The devil works hard. Barbie works harder. The officer's professional detachment evaporated, replaced by a sudden, sharp clarity. Barbie. It wasn't just a nickname. It was a code name. The flawless image in front of him wasn't just a facade. It was a uniform. In that instant, he understood. This was not a routine stop. He was looking at a ghost, a meticulously constructed phantom whose perfect exterior was the only thing holding back a dark, sprawling, and unimaginably profitable reality. The curtain on the Barbie show was about to be torn down, and behind it lay an empire built on drugs, data, and deception. To the thousands who followed her, Magdalena Sadlo was the high priestess of aspirational living. Her Instagram feed was a masterclass in modern hedonism, a digital tapestry woven from threads of luxury, beauty, and endless leisure. One day, she was raising a champagne flute against the backdrop of a Santorini sunset, the iconic blue domes perfectly framed behind her. The next, she was captured in a penthouse overlooking the glittering Dubai marina, a collection of designer shopping bags artfully arranged at her feet. Captions read like affirmations for a life less ordinary. Another day, another paradise had Dubai life # blessed, or working on my own terms. Boss Babe. She curated this life from her base in Bracknell, a pleasant but unremarkable English town known more for its roundabouts and tech company offices than for international glamour. This very dissonance was part of her mystique. She was the local girl who had somehow cracked the code, living a global life from a quiet suburban backdrop. Her followers, scrolling through their own more mundane realities, saw a fairy tale. They saw a woman who was free, who had transcended the ordinary. They envied, they admired, and they double-tapped. Crucially, they didn't ask the right questions. They never wondered how a former Love Island contestant and part-time model could sustain a lifestyle that would challenge the budget of an A-list celebrity. How could she possess a watch collection, featuring not just the Patek Philippe but also Audemars Piguet and Rolex, worth a cumulative £500,000? Why did her online musings occasionally veer into startlingly specific territory, referencing the complex mechanics of cryptocurrency wallets, the best corridors for anonymous international money transfers, or the security of encrypted algorithms? These were not the typical talking points of a fashion influencer. In her online world, her partner, Ricky Gosney, was a phantom presence. Occasionally, a shadowy male figure could be glimpsed in the reflection of her sunglasses, or a man's arm, adorned with a luxury watch of its own, would appear in a Cheers boomerang. To her followers, he was a mysterious, wealthy boyfriend. The reality was far more sinister. Gosney was the head of the serpent, the kingpin of the drug empire. Sadlo was not his arm candy. She was his CFO. No one noticed the brief, unexplained digital silences, the days when she would disappear from social media only to return with a new designer handbag and a freshly swapped SIM card. No one suspected that behind the golden cage of her online persona, she wasn't just living the high life. She was the architect of its finances, meticulously managing the vast illicit profits of the criminal enterprise that funded it all. Forget the brutish, chaotic imagery of common drug gangs. This was a different beast entirely. The Gosney-Sadlo syndicate was a transcontinental drug empire run with the bloodless efficiency of a Fortune 500 corporation. Their operation was a masterpiece of logistics and financial engineering, and, at its very heart, pulling the digital strings, was Magdalena Sadlo. The product was diverse and high-grade, hundreds of kilograms of high-purity cocaine sourced from cartels, medical-grade ketamine, and potent cannabis strains. The supply chain was a carefully mapped river of contraband, flowing from the Middle East, through trafficking-friendly ports like Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and into a sophisticated distribution network spanning the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. Sadlo was the ghost in this machine. While Gosney oversaw the physical movement and enforcement, her domain was the data. She maintained the syndicate's Bible, a labyrinthine, triple-encrypted spreadsheet stored on a secure offshore cloud server. It was a dark mirror of a corporate ledger, a document of chilling detail. Each entry was color-coded, a neat row representing a shipment. The columns read like a business analyst's report. Product, weight, G, purity, percent, cost price, Estantin, street value, courier ID, route code, net profit. Every gram was accounted for. Every pound sterling was tracked from its dirty origin to its clean, laundered destination. She coordinated a sprawling network of operatives who likely never met each other. They were container shippers who buried vacuum-sealed drug packages within legitimate cargo. They were airport mules, chosen for their unremarkable appearance, who carried cash and small, high-value drug quantities. They were middlemen who used burner phones to arrange collections in deserted industrial estate parking lots under the cover of darkness. They were all just code names in her system, cogs in a machine they only saw a tiny part of. Sadlo managed the cash flow with the skill of a seasoned financier. She allocated funds for bribes, paid couriers their commissions, and calculated profit margins on every single deal. The empire she managed wasn't built on violence and intimidation, but on something far more modern and insidious: information. She was the financial mastermind who ensured the network ran smoothly, silently, and, for a very long time, completely invisibly. The syndicate's operational security was paranoid and absolute. Their creed was stealth. Their primary tool was EncroChat, a bespoke, military-grade encrypted messaging platform. For years, it was the private language of the global underworld, a digital fortress that gave its users a sense of total impunity. Messages were encrypted end-to-end, routed through secure servers, and could be remotely wiped with a panic password. Within this secret digital world, Sadlo wasn't just a user. She was a power broker, directing financial traffic under the codename BARBIE. Their tradecraft was meticulous. Phones were treated as disposable assets, swapped out every 14 days. SIM cards were purchased with cash from anonymous corner shops. Operatives communicated in clipped, coded language, their identities shielded by handles like Fertile Rhino or Mystic Jaguar. The money laundering operation was Sadlo's magnum opus. She didn't just wash money, she vaporized its criminal origins through a multi-stage process of alchemical finance. The first stage was placement. Large sums of dirty cash from street sales were broken down into amounts below the 10,000 pesos reporting threshold. This process, known as smurfing, was carried out by a team of low-level runners who would deposit the cash into dozens of different bank accounts belonging to a network of front businesses, cash-heavy enterprises like nail bars, car washes, and takeaway restaurants. The second stage was layering. Once the cash was in the banking system, Sadlo would orchestrate a rapid, complex series of digital transfers. The money would bounce between accounts, be wired to shell corporations in different jurisdictions, and then, crucially, be converted into cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Monero. This leap into the decentralized, anonymous world of crypto was the key step, effectively breaking the audit trail. The final stage was integration. The now clean crypto would be slowly reintroduced into the legitimate economy. It might be used to purchase property in Dubai, invest in a portfolio of NFTs, or trade on foreign currency markets. The end result was clean, taxable assets completely disconnected from the cocaine and ketamine deals that had generated the initial profit. It was a dazzlingly complex system, and Sadlo had the entire financial map in her head. The sophistication was their greatest strength, but it was also a chain, and every chain, no matter how strong, has a weak link. In a sterile, soundproofed room in the heart of London, Operation Matrix began not with a bang, but with a data point. For months, analysts at the UK's National Crime Agency, NCA, had been watching digital ghosts. They noted an anomalous flow of cash, hundreds of thousands of pounds, being fed into a small cluster of ATMs in Merseyside. They flagged a short-term rental car that traffic cameras kept placing near known drug handoff points in the dead of night. These were whispers, faint signals in a sea of noise. Then, the whispers became a roar. In 2020, a joint French-Dutch investigation team achieved the unthinkable. They successfully infiltrated and dismantled the EncroChat network. It was the digital equivalent of the Enigma break in World War II. Suddenly, years of secret communications from the world's most sophisticated criminals were laid bare. The NCA was handed a data trove, a digital gold rush. It was millions of messages, a mountain of raw intelligence that would take years to fully process. A dedicated team of analysts began the painstaking work of sifting through the data, connecting the digital dots. They cross-referenced codenames with locations, financial transactions with burner phone top-ups. Slowly, the structure of a major UK-based syndicate began to emerge. And one codename kept appearing in messages related to finance and logistics: BARBIE. The moment they linked the BARBIE handle to a flight booking made by one Magdalena Sadlo, the investigation crystallized. She became their primary target. For 6 months, she lived under a microscope she never knew existed. Long-lens cameras recorded her meetings in quiet cafes. Stealth drones hovered silently above, documenting her picking up packages in desolate car parks. Her digital life was intercepted, her travel patterns analyzed. They watched her change phones like outfits, but her methods, once a shield, were now a predictable pattern. The investigators knew her routes, her habits, her entire operational rhythm. The net wasn't just closing, it was being tailored to fit her perfectly. Her arrest at Heathrow was not a lucky break. It was a scheduled appointment she was an hour late for. The interview room was cold, gray, and smelled of institutional bleach. It was a world away from the gilded penthouses of Dubai. For the first hour, Magdalena Sadlo was a portrait of icy composure. She sat upright, her hands folded neatly on the metal table, her expression impassive. She was Barbie, the untouchable influencer, and this was all a terrible, inconvenient mistake. "I don't know anything about that," she would repeat, her voice steady. "I am a model and a social media personality." The lead investigator, a man with tired eyes and infinite patience, let her speak. He let the silence hang in the air. Then, he slid a single printed sheet across the table. It was a transcript of an EncroChat message. "Confirming receipt of 10 KK payment to be processed via crypto wallet B7. Advise when funds are clear." That was you, Magdalena. Sent from a device registered to your network at a time when satellite data confirms you were at the location of the exchange. We have the logs. We have the location data. We have you. She glanced at it, her mask of indifference unwavering. "That means nothing to me." He slid another folder across. This one contained surveillance photos. One showed her in a Bracknell cafe, accepting a small, silver USB stick from a known syndicate member. This stick contained the financial ledgers for the entire northern operation. We recovered it from your apartment. The spreadsheet is titled Spring Collection. A flicker. For the first time, a micro-expression of fear crossed her face before being ruthlessly suppressed. The final blow was a printout from the master spreadsheet itself, her dark ledger. The investigator's finger rested on a single line item. He had circled the courier's code name, the weight of the cocaine shipment, and the final column, net profit. And next to it, in a notes section, was a single word, Barbie. "This was your system, Magdalena," the investigator said, his voice soft but heavy with finality. "Every gram, every pound. You tracked it all. It was a brilliant system, truly, but you made one mistake. You admired your own work so much you signed it." In that moment, the velvet curtain didn't just fall, it evaporated. The Barbie persona dissolved under the harsh fluorescent lights of the interview room, leaving behind a terrified woman who had been caught in the wreckage of her own meticulous creation. The game was over. The air in Carlisle Crown Court was thick with the weight of consequence. The heavy oak paneling seemed to absorb sound, creating a somber, muffled silence. Magdalena Sadlo stood in the dock, no longer the radiant influencer but a diminished figure in a plain gray suit. The confident poise was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed vacancy. The judge's voice was stern as he delivered his verdict, describing her role not as a mere follower, but as an indispensable financial cog in a criminal machine designed with terrifying precision. When the sentence was read out, 14 years in prison, with no possibility of early release, she did not weep. She simply stared ahead, as if looking at a future that had suddenly become a blank wall. She was the last of 13 defendants to be sentenced. The couriers, the logistics managers, the warehouse men, all cogs in her machine, were brought to justice, their combined sentences totaling more than 140 years. The syndicate's assets, the tangible symbols of her empire, were declared forfeit. The Patek Philippe and Rolex watches, the Hermès handbags, the 200,000 palins in cash discovered at Heathrow, and the encrypted hard drives that contained the blueprints of her reign, all seized. The glamour had been stripped away, revealing the ugly truth beneath. There would be no more yachts in Dubai, no more champagne toasts against exotic sunsets. The quote that had become her downfall, "The devil works hard, Barbie works harder," was now just a chilling footnote on a criminal record. The $6.4 million drug empire, run with the quiet hum of laptops and the silent efficiency of triple-layer encryption, was dismantled. Yet, as the courtroom doors closed behind her, the questions remained, hanging in the air like the ghost of her expensive perfume. Was 14 years truly a sufficient price for orchestrating a criminal enterprise of such scale and sophistication? And the most unsettling question of all, in a world where a life can be curated and a crime can be committed with a keystroke, how many other Barbies are out there? hiding their empires in plain sight, their dark work illuminated only by the glow of a screen. In the modern underworld, the most terrifying monster is the one you would never suspect.